Okay, just a quick one. I want to speak briefly on what I've called Nigeria's killing fields. A couple of weeks ago in Uromi, Edo State, 16 hunters, um, citizens of Kano State, northern Nigeria, were ambushed by local vigilantes, um, and then they were lynched and immolated in a most brutal manner. Then the gory theater of genocidal killings shifted to Boko's local government area in Plateau State, where terrorists pretending to be headsmen swooped in on the sleepy villages in that local government. And when they were done, scores lay dead. As of the last count, more than 60 um, dead bodies have been retrieved and buried in mass graves. Now, on these genocidal killings in Plateau and Benue states, it is not new. It's just a resumption of the evil business after a recent law. Now, um, these genocidal killings, barbaric killings, is pretty much the story across the length and breadth of this once beautiful country called Nigeria. It is one story of mass killings, genocidal and barbaric acts, one after the other, making this beautiful country one huge killing field. And I am exhausted, both by talking about this and in the continuing impact on our collective psyche. Whether you realize it or not, we're becoming numb, to stories of bloodshed and deaths, that defy both logic and reason. I wrote this book you're seeing up here. I wrote this book over 10 years ago. The heinous atrocities are enumerated in the book are still here. However, they have actually gotten worse. So, in this country called Nigeria, things actually do change, but in the negative. Now, why is this so? Because nobody gets punished for atrocities perpetrated, no matter how heinous these atrocities are. So, what are the solutions? I don't claim to be, um, you know, someone who's got a silver bullet. We know the solutions. We know the solutions, but we pretend that we don't, and that's another sad tragedy. Our political class, seem unwilling to confront this monster of insecurity and mass killings ravaging our landscape. You know, they seem unbothered. They just bury their head and wishing for it, to blow over. Even though some of them are actually the instigators of this. So here are my suggestions for the upteenth, time. Number one, we need to set up special courts. The government should set up special courts, or tribunals to try kidnappers, bandits, terrorists, insurgents, ritual murderers, and the capital punishment must be enforced immediately for this. Critically, in going back to the case of the Uromi killings and the genocide going on in Boko's local government, while the alleged killers of the hunters in Uromi were promptly arrested, hardly do any of the perpetrators of genocide on the plateau in Benue State, in Ondo State, Enugu, even in Zamfara, Katsina, and a few other places, hardly do these guys, ever get arrested or prosecuted. Now, let me restate and re-echo the words or the directives of Mr. President. These perpetrators, these killers, whoever they are, wherever they are, they must be hunted down swiftly and brought to justice. My second suggestion, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, at least you have created the livestock ministry and furthermore signed an agreement with a 1 plus billion dollars agreement with a Brazilian firm to boost livestock production and management in Nigeria. Now, while I don't necessarily agree that we needed to create a livestock ministry, but let us, for a moment agree it was expedient, as a necessary trade-off for peace to reign across our land. So, having taken these extraordinary steps, when are you therefore going to announce a national ban on open grazing of cattle in Nigeria? When? I think this decision was long overdue. When are you going to do this, Mr. President? How long do Nigerians get butchered in their homes and farms before the federal government decides enough is enough? And that in this 21st century, herding cattle on the streets or the streets of state capitals in our towns and villages across Nigeria will eventually ignite full-scale war, the outcome of which no one can predict. How? How long before we come to the realization as a nation? So we need to ban open grazing of cattle across the streets, towns, villages of Nigeria. Okay, in the spirit of federalism, if certain states decide to retain open grazing, fine, but cattle must not graze across state lines. We need to do that, implement it, enforce it immediately. Third suggestion, when is the federal government and the state government going to demand a surrender of all kinds of firearms and ammunition in the hands of private persons and unauthorized individuals and groups? When are we going to do that? Because there is a proliferation, large scale, indiscriminate proliferation of arms, firearms, ammunition, some military grade weapons in the hands of unauthorized persons, using this to commit heinous atrocities. Now, hopefully, I hope, just hoping, political considerations to win elections in 2027 will not override a patriotic action in the overall national interest of Nigeria. I hope and pray. Thank you.